Today I find out that through Kent Social Services they refuse to take my son into care because his father's not looking after him properly. They're leaving him with a narcissistic psychopath with the notion apparently I'm mentally unstable and I haven't taken my son to school because I couldn't be asked for 2 months. That's what he's telling them. Now, my ex has the gift of the gab, he also has money. I've been down to the police station and said social services won't take him. I've been to the school, they refused handing him over to me. The police came and I said to him, right, I want my son. And they're going, oh, we've got to take it to the courts, we've got to take him to Chatham. And I said, well, I'm not going to sit there in front of another magistrate again who's done a week's course that thinks he's going to tell other people how to live their lives even though they have no life of their own. So he then gets arsey with me saying, oh, well, there's nothing we can do. And I said, well, there's no point in you then, is there really? He's one of these misogynistic policemen. Don't get me wrong, not all police are shitbags, but these two were, yeah, I bet they were women beaters off the beat. So while I'm trying to explain to him, I don't want my son down with a paedophile, I don't want my son down with an assistant of a paedophile, I don't want my son with someone who can't be bothered to take him to doctor's appointments or anything that he needs to be, and you're telling me this is justice. They're saying you're going to take it back to court, and I said, with what representation? Oh, you're going to have to get a solicitor. I said, who's going to pay for that? Legal aid. I said, no, legal aid think that I get too much money because I get tax credits because I've got a sum of DLA that I'm currently getting. I will lose that because his dad is going to have him taken away. Now the point is that apparently you can go to court, you can take anybody to court and accuse them of anything without any evidence, providing you've got the money. So there's dads out there that don't get to see their children at all, that do care about their children, same with mums as well, and they haven't got the money, right, to go to court and fight to see their children. But people who have rinsed it out of other people and used effective methods and sit there and pretend that the sun shines out of their backside can do what they want. So I was talking to the police, they jumped in the van without even trying to tell me, and I said, excuse me, I'm talking to you. So they waffled me away like a minute. I was like, hang on a minute, so I punched the van. I was like, how dare you walk away from me? So what does the policeman do? He grabs me by the arm and drags me out the room, so I go, oh, patience, I've got a colleague dealing with a serious assault. And I'm going, yeah, I know what that feels like. When I was on the trucks, we weren't allowed to leave a job. We had cardiac arrests going off around the corner, but we were sitting there dealing with the mental health that we have, trying to convince to go to hospital. We weren't allowed to leave that person because of duty of care. Now, it's not my issue that somebody else is getting stabbed. Now, I'm very sorry that it's happening, but this bloke seems to think that he is much more holier than now, and I don't really give a crap about his colleague, if I'm honest with you. Not if he's going to talk to me like that, because at the end of the day, everybody in emergency services is in danger. You don't get to shout in people's face and call them petulant children because they're trying to stop their kids from being abused, because they're trying to take them out of dangerous situations. I had the police have told me apparently it's not coercion through the courts if it's going through the courts. Apparently, you know, holiday dates is an important thing to dodge outside of your own court order, and if it's you that's made a court order and you got the money, they're not going to penalise you for breaking that court order. Apparently somebody without the money has to take you to court to get you done for breaking the court order. So here we go, back in equality. We have the silver spoons of Parliament declaring that poverty doesn't exist in this country. We've got people being pushed into poverty by the misogynistic laws that are coming in. And it's not just women that are getting this, men get it too. Alright, I'm not being funny. I spent the last 8 years working in the ambulance service. I had to leave to try and get legal aid. Apparently I'm still over the threshold for legal aid, even though I've literally lost the house. Let me tell you something about my ex-partner. He was an emotional abuser. So when we split up when my son was 2, I let him off child maintenance as long as he didn't try to screw me over with the property that we had, which I let out. And it was a pain in the ass property because he bought it when I was pregnant and I was really ill, so I couldn't be there to deal with most of it. So he left me with this property that was a total pig. We had next to no rights in the lease. So I ended up working 12 to 15 hours a day trying to pay for this property, trying to look after a 2-year-old and trying to judge it all. And he didn't get to pay child maintenance, and that was the deal. And as long as I let him do what he wanted, that was fine. As soon as he started doing things that was outside my son's interest, he started taking me to court. He decided to get in a relationship with someone that had just been diagnosed with cancer and then get my son to start spending time with her within days of knowing her. I was dragged through the courts to force my son to spend time with her even though he hadn't been with her. And I said, oh, she's engaged, so they're engaged, so it's a serious relationship. And I was like, all right, is this like looking at people like Jordan get married, a serious relationship, is it? Yeah, all right then. She died like a year later, and my ex refused to leave the house until he got bought out by her kids' share, so he's in fact screwed her kids out of their money. He had told all sorts of ridiculous stories about me, and I got shot down in flames by someone that I didn't even know. And to be honest, I've walked away and I've said, you see him, I don't want nothing to do. You start taking me to court, that's it, we're done. But apparently holiday dates are really important. Children are starving in this country. People can't afford sanitary products. People can't afford toothpaste. People are living on the streets. Holiday dates must for going to court and wasting money on. My job didn't matter, but his warehouse job is imperative. He can't be bothered to take the day off to take his son to a neurodevelopment assessment. He's decided he doesn't need it now because, oh yeah, I forgot to say, he's put in prohibited steps because I reported his brother to the police for being inappropriate and telling my son to suck his cock. So that's where the claim of mental health is. I've been claimed on mental health, but I'm supposed to wait 3 years. 3 months to go back to court, and then I'm supposed to somehow magically find the money to pay for a barrister yet again. My elderly father paid for it last time. He did offer, and I'm like, why should my dad start paying money to this arsehole who's come from an uneducated and ridiculous family where they think as long as they get their own way, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the damage it does to my son. I can't even be bothered to take him to the hospital when he needs to go. I'm a healthcare professional. He doesn't consult me. To be honest, he is right. The courts are going to go in his favour because he's the one paying for the case. And as one magistrate said to me before, I don't care if somebody told your son to put his balls in the toaster, Miss Jones, it's hearsay. My son told me. Now, they generalise children. I say kids play people off against each other. And I was like, well, my son is probably autistic, so that doesn't even come into the spectrum because autistic people are very literal, and that is exactly why we need a diagnosis. So I don't think I'm going to bother going to court now, so because it's already decided. It is basically, if you have money, you can do what you want. It doesn't matter if you haven't earned that money and you just want to screw someone over, you can. It doesn't matter the fact that he didn't pay child maintenance for years and then tried to con money out of me from the flat, which all the money went on court fees anyway over spending time with some woman who's now dead anyway. He's ruined my son's education. He refused to pay for a private tutor. When my son was with me, I was trying to take him private kickboxing and wall climbing lessons because I was trying to build his self-esteem. I had to get him to have private lessons, actually, because he would not participate in a group because he's very wary and has a severe anxiety disorder. So this is the justice of this country. The silver spoons, like the ones in Parliament who've gone to Eton and they divorced their wives or husbands. Probably the case women are narcissistic as well. It's all right, you know. You can do that if you're spent the last 8 years working your arse off, being a good citizen, never breaking the law. And trying to look after your kid. It doesn't matter, it doesn't come into it. and they're going, oh, it's the welfare of my child being left with a bloke who, the police refused to listen to Logan's statement of what his uncle said to him. Apparently, it's not abuse if you take someone through the court, even though if it's frivolous reasons like holiday dates, despite the fact I am now in debt because I had to literally fork out and pay for it, which I ain't got a problem with. It's my son, for my child for the last how many years. But the noose around my neck turns up when he feels like he expects me to drop everything and revolve my life around him as he sees fit. This isn't coercive abuse, and this is why, for example, recently today, sons campaigned for their mum to be let out because she killed her husband. Now, I can quite easily understand how she felt like that, because nobody helps, nobody listens. I spent years in the service. I'm supposed to refer people, and I have referred people. I've seen severe child abuse. I've seen child suicide. I've seen children with irons held on them. But that doesn't matter because, that I can see these things happening a mile off. So what's going to happen now is I'm going to have to walk away because, quite honestly, it's sapping my energy. And I can't be bothered to spend my time because he does this for my attention. This is literally purely what it's about. I don't care about him anymore. I've walked away and I've left him in no uncertain terms and said, you see your son, you stay away from me, stick to the court order, we're done. Right? We didn't need a court order in the first place because you had access to your son, but you decided to be strict and you wanted every single thing to the way you wanted it. And the courts, because they like the feeling of power, think they can talk to people like shit. They look down their nose at perfectly honest citizens that are literally trying to do their best to bring up their children. The courts are actually adding to the poverty in this country and to the mental health issues, and so are certain parts of the place, but I can't argue that because there's some iffy people working in the ambulance service as well. You get them everywhere, no matter where you go. But at the end of the day, this is why there will be a parliamentary revolution, because people at the bottom who have lost everything have nothing left to lose. When you've got nothing left to lose, there's nothing to stop you from uprising. They did it in France with the monarchy. They did it in Russia with the monarchy. Luckily for the monarchy in this country, they're not responsible, so it will be the silver spoons of Parliament, and they will be held accountable. Like Matthew Pennycook is too busy sorting out his local councillors' work than bothering to meet any of his constituents and speak to them, and who, when they ask for advice and for help, he dismisses them because apparently he's just too busy. I bet he's on a 6-figure salary, while the rest of us down the bottom literally trying to scrape by on our crap wages, and then the ambulance service saying we haven't got no staff, or we're beginning to wonder why, because most of us are trying to deal with bullshit and not being listened to. We've lived our lives, honest people, we've saved lives, we've lost lives, we've seen some crap, but that's what we sign up for when we go to do it. Well, not everybody does, they don't realise what they're in for, but it's an eye-opener. And I'm sorry it is for the police to a certain amount, but it does go to show that this is why the people with money want to keep people poor, so that they can control them and that they can then claim, oh yeah, well, it's there, you've got a right to be represented. Yeah, by who? By who? Exactly. Or you can get legal advice. What does legal advice do? Is legal advice going to come into the courtroom when you're representing yourself and the judge is going to sit there and look down their nose at you and go, well, you don't know what you're talking about anyway because you ain't got no representation? Literally, when I've gone to court with no representation, I have felt on my arse every time. And when I have a barrister, I did have one completely crap barrister, even though she was an expensive one. But the last time I went, I did have a decent barrister. But at the end of the day, it's now got to a point where it's killing my health. My GP's going, you've got to tell him to stop taking you to court. The barrister's saying, oh, they have a high threshold to stop taking you to court for frivolous reasons. What is more a frivolous reason than a poxy holiday date? Nobody's stopping him from taking him out of the country on holiday, but he has to purposely take him on my time so that he can then create an argument. Therefore, it's been provocative every time. He is making sure that I know that I am not important. He's literally lost me my house, my deposit. I'm living in a housing association, which wouldn't be a problem if that's what I've worked my arse off over the years, and I was happy to walk away, and the geezer didn't know how lucky he had it, but yet he's still not happy. He is a narcissistic psychopath. He doesn't consider his son's anxiety and feelings, which really is upsetting. It really is upsetting. I dread to get a phone call that I don't want to hear one day. But the point is he's ruining my life, and the courts will say, well, she's not going to turn up because she doesn't care. It's not that I don't care, it's that I'm tired and I'm drained. I've done this 8 times already, and you are all just, you're just adding to the abuse wagon. I'll set up a petition to Parliament about removing the system that calls abusiveness through the courts. And the courts are in scrutiny at the moment, but nobody's doing anything about it. Surprise, surprise, they shut it down saying, oh, we don't understand it. I said, well, you do understand it. What it is, it's not within your interest to choose to understand it. So it won't be long until another child dies through the failure of social services. It won't be that, the courts won't say, oh, well, you let him off child maintenance for X amount of years, he hasn't got to pay, you haven't got to pay him child maintenance while he's living in Shangri-La land, owning his own house off the back of other people that he's screwed over, including dying women. So it literally is still a one-way street. There is still sexism and inequality in this country, and nobody seems to care. There's a lot of good people around. This is one thing I will say, have faith, because there is a lot of good people around, but unfortunately they're going to get screwed over as well. People try and help you, but it will never be enough to help you for what you want. So at the end of the day, it literally is a case of you have to wait for some child or somebody to die or commit suicide before the court's bothered to listen to it and say, well, you should have done this. And you know, what happened to risk assessment? What happened to nipping things in the bud before it took start? I agree, both parents all need to have access to their children, but there are limits, and there is limits to destroying that family. And even the MASH team of Greenwich Services will tell you that the family courts do more damage to families than anything else. So there will be backhanders somewhere. Somebody's getting paid some money, definitely. And the people like Margaret Evans of Busmerton Law, she's supposed to be a member of the resolution, but she likes to throw in accusations, try and rinse single mums out of money, and make as much animosity and anger and aggro and threats as she can, so that she can wind the situation up and earn more money out of the clients. I mean, even the Wallies from social services told my ex-partner, it's no good going through courts, you've got to sort it out one-on-one. But he hears, yeah, but that doesn't do me anything because I'm not getting what I want, so I'm going to carry on listening to this woman who's earning more money out of me. The guy can't be bothered to take his son to the doctors or to the climbing wall to spend any decent money, but he's got money for courts and barristers and solicitors and controlling people. And to be honest, it's hurting my son. It's hurting my son, this constant being pulled between two people. And unfortunately, if one person is not going to be adult enough to say, right, I'm stopping this, Because trust me, I've tried being amicable with the guy. I've been more than amicable. He's got away with absolute murder, financially and emotionally, with me over the past. But the one time you put your foot down and say, I refuse to be treated badly, it's not allowed. So, it's in the child's interest. The courts say, in the child's interest. Well, is it the child's interest to have parents at loggerheads and arguing over bullshit? Is that really the child's interest? Yeah, his dad couldn't be bothered to pay £12.50 a week towards his private tuition because his fiancée, his 2-second fiancée, didn't like it to give me money. He's never given me money before. But when he said, I want the money from the flat now because when it was equity, when it was wasn't in equity, he didn't want to know. When it was all debts and being paid for, that was down to me, Muggins here, right? When he suddenly realised that when I put it up because I wanted to wash my hands of him and it and everything else, he suddenly wanted half the money. I said, okay, well then you pay me back the child maintenance you haven't paid me over the years. Oh no, I'm not going to do that. Okay, well you need to start paying the council tax on the flat as well. I'm not going to do that, so you can't have it both ways, sunshine. You know, so this is why people are in poverty, this is why people are poor, and the banks are earning much money out of, they could help people. They could freeze loans and stuff by people that have paid on time, on the dot, throughout the years, but they choose not to. Debt collecting companies should be illegal. At the end of the day, if banks lend money, it should be at the risk. But then again, this is where we're going back to the silver spoons, the people that run the banks. They're earning shitloads of money out of the poor people in society. And to be honest, it should be overthrown. I mean, I do need to research this more actually, but I do believe that they're getting big tax breaks, even though they're earning a shed load of money. Why are they getting tax breaks? Why is $22,000 a year considered over a threshold to claim legal aid or any other form of benefits? You know, 22 is somebody trying to literally work their arse off for the money that they could, and then they're penalised. Then they're told, oh, you earn enough money to pay for your own solicitors. Now, I don't believe that is a mistake somewhere. These people are not that stupid. In fact, they're very shrewd. We're paying for them. They look down their nose at us as, the hoi polloi, but we are actually paying for them. I might have had to come off on the benefits to try and get the legal aid, which I'm getting struggle for. But I paid shitloads of tax over the years that I worked, and I had to fight tooth and nail just to get home with my son, and I'm still not getting assistance. And even when I first left work, I felt guilty because I thought, this isn't me, this isn't who I am. And there are a lot of hard-working people out there now. Back in the day, yeah, you do get the scroungers and the scroats. They're out there, they're still out there, the old dole seekers. But there are a lot of people, hard-working people, that are becoming poorer and poorer because the heiraqy, as I call them, want to keep us that way. So my suggestion is we become a party, we become the People's Party or the Taxpayers' Party, where we knock off these people that have never had to live in a council house, that have never had to struggle, that have got sent to Eton and had their qualifications basically paid for. I mean, come on. Do you reckon their parents are going to turn around and say, oh yeah, I'm going to pay this money, but they failed because you didn't bother to study? I really don't think so. And this is why people do take things into their own hands. That's why people end up doing ridiculous things like armed bank robbery and stuff like that, or killing their coercive husbands, because nobody who's supposed to listens. No, there are things in place, but nobody deals with it. Nobody wants to know. You know, there's glory hunters out there that rather go and see, I don't know, stabbing. Perhaps if that family hadn't have entered into a poor frigging society in the first place, they wouldn't be hanging around with them sort of crowds. Where there was actual chance of jobs, where there was actual chance of education. You know? And also the people that won't be responsible for their children expect the authorities, well, parents need to start taking more responsibility for their kids. Definitely, I take responsibility for mine. My relationship ended over 10 years ago, and I've still only got the one. He'll be 12 in January, and that's because I don't believe in just knocking him out in here and there for the sake of it with the wrong person. I've seen the damage it's done to my son. Poor child, such a sweetheart, such a brilliant child, clever too, very clever. It doesn't show through his results, but he is astute. He is, you know, you can't touch him. He comes out with things that you're like, where the hell did that come from? You know, I didn't even know that you knew about that stuff. You know, don't go breaking families. Not the ones that don't need to, not the hard-working, honest ones anyway. You know, there's plenty of people that are up to their eyeballs on drugs out there and alcohol, and yeah, there's people out there that do want to get off it and help themselves, but there's also a shed load of people that enjoy their lifestyle, and I don't say while we're paying them benefits, I don't say while we're helping them with anything, I don't say while we're leaving their kids with them, because their kids have got no chance for as long as that person is in that state. You know, we had to abolish care homes for children because of all the amount of assaults, but I'm sure in this day and age we must be able to regulate something better, you know, and perhaps it will incent the parent to sort out their life in order to get them back. If they really care about them that much, if they honestly had their children because they love them and care about them, they would do it. So I have seen it. It does happen. It's rare, but it happens. So people, I think we need to start seriously considering who's who in this country. The chain of command, I suppose you could say, as we say in a service, chain of command. We also have a saying as well, shit rolls downhill. If you're at the top, we're going to do the best to make sure that the people at the bottom get the blame, despite the ones there, the ones that are doing everything. Chin up, people. I think we need to start Viva la Revolution.